who I don't love. There are people who he's more liked than Hillary Clinton was for lots of reasons. But there are a lot of voters who were like, I voted for him to get Trump out. Things are still bad. I'm tuning out everything, and maybe I'll tune back in and vote Democratic because if I see the Stephen Colbert that night and he scares me, maybe I'll vote. Not a very edifying election. That's where I see people talking.
It also strikes me when there's, when people are writing a lot about this kind of historic collapse of young people's enthusiasm in the Democratic coalition, how much that suck it up and vote for me was the explicit pitch of the Biden campaign of being like, basically like, you don't like me, I don't like you, but everybody has to get in the van to do this one thing. And now the one thing's done. And I mean, that was the statement from the beginning. So it's like, it shouldn't come as a surprise.
Their argument, like, it is very funny watching people get mad at the young people for checking out because, like, what Biden's explicit pitch to people was, I am the status quo. You will not get what you want, but that's okay because we have this bigger mission. But you know what? When the election's over, we'll discuss it,
Yeah.
Like we'll see. Your parents saying we'll see. Well, you got home and you found out what many kids do, that we'll see means no. We'll see always means no. They're just trying to shine you on. And so this is absolutely predictable. And if you do believe that Biden is constrained and can't do the things that these people want him to do, then getting mad at them for feeling that way to me is absolutely baffling. Because you're essentially asking them to just act like you're your parents, essentially, like pretend you own a home.
Yeah.
But most, it's like, I'm sorry, I am who I am. I have student loan debt, and I have, a precarious life situation. And there's these things that I imagine this guy could do. And this stuff that his predecessor was doing, that they're now being cut off, and we're being told, like, accept this. It's like, yes, if you are a secure Democrat, the people who really pushed Biden over, the people who didn't want to die of COVID, and so voted for Biden over Trump, for them, this is not a big deal. This is not a reason to not do your duty to vote for the Democrats. But they're young people. By definition, they vote less. They're supposed to care about politics less because they're supposed to be having fun.
We do have a bunch of individual races to go to get into, and there's a lot of real fun, goofy stuff to talk about there. But I wanted to hit one more thing in just the general vibe before we get there. We've been talking a lot about Biden, but I do want to touch on Trump's role in the whole midterm cosmology, because this is the first election in 6 years he's not either in office or on the ballot. And yet, as I'm putting together the dossier on all this, basically every Republican primary race is defined by proximity to Trump. So, Dave, at this point, what is the exiled Trump? What is his kind of role in all of this and in the Republican politics right now?
I mean, he's having a great time. You see all the you see all the photos of him hanging out with a very small buffet stand at Mar-a-Lago. That's always what surprises me. I would imagine like some kind of Vegas casino buffet, but whenever I see that buffet photo, it's him and maybe some eggs, ketchup for some reason. But he's hanging out at Mar-a-Lago. Everybody comes to genuflect. I mean, this JD, and we'll get into Ohio. This JD Vance endorsement, I thought, was by the time it happened, it shouldn't have been that surprising. But I think even a few months ago, I mean, I went on there to cover Vance when Marjorie Greene endorsed him, and I thought, one, this makes sense. Two, what is better than having somebody that publicly denounced you and says they hate you, begging for your support? That sounds amazing. Who wouldn't want that? And so Trump has just not only popularity among Republicans, but Republicans really willing to supplicate themselves, and seeing just no other sure thing path to winning a campaign than getting him to endorse them. So he has complete control by choice. I mean, like one hinge point in history, I guess, is if Mitch McConnell had convinced, what was it taken, 9 Republican senators to just say, yeah, actually, what he did is so bad, he's banned from running for office again. He could have. We'd be in a different situation, but he didn't. And Trump or anything else, these people have unless you are a very weird person who is on Twitter all the time, a bad thing happens, and then like a month later, you're like, well, I'm not constantly thinking about that bad thing anymore. That's how you adjust and live. You're not like tweeting about trauma. And so Republicans who really did think January 6th was bad are like, you know what? But my voters don't think that, and it wasn't really that bad. And he's just in a great position where he doesn't have to apologize for anything. He has a rally that the rallies have gotten like a little bit smaller from what I've seen. I haven't been to any in a while.
Yo, you'd better not be talking about the
Oh
size
yeah,
of Trump rallies, Dave Weigel.
this is true. This
You're
is
gonna
always
get the
where I get in
beam put on
trouble.
you again.
Yeah, he apparently talks about that in interviews sometimes. Uh, but anyway, no, the rallies are like they're big. They're the biggest rallies anyone is having in the country. They're just like I think he went to
Yeah, exactly.
North Carolina, and he got more people than Biden gets when he goes to like Boston. That's just true. But so he's not like driving news cycles. He just drives news cycles inside the Republican Party. I cannot stress how much entire primary campaigns are just people talking about who loves Trump the most, and that is
We'll
all
get
that
into
they talk
this.
about. Yeah,
Yes.
Although we'll also get into this. His endorsement has not yet appeared to be the sort of golden ticket that everyone is really assuming,
yeah.
because there's been some of his they haven't taken off, but we'll talk about that.
Well, let's get into it. For this episode, I think I'm going to be most of my focus is going to be on the Senate, simply because there are 435 House races, and
Mhm.
Dave, you can maybe highlight some as they come up.
I'm gonna
Uh,
rank them all. No, no.
but obviously in the Senate, an incredibly precarious time for the Dems. Kind of, you have to be lucky every time. We only have to be lucky once spot the Democrats find them in to keep their slim control of the Senate. There are 14 Democratic seats up this cycle, all in states Biden won. 21 Republican seats are up, and two of those are in Biden states, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. So we come down to a map that looks like GOP pickups possible in Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, maybe New Hampshire, and possible Democratic pickup spots in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, maybe North Carolina. So with that said, let's go to the states. Starting with Georgia, the Peach State. Now let's dive right into whether or not this Trump endorsement is a golden ticket or not. For governor, we have Brian Kemp versus David Perdue in the GOP governor primary. Perdue had gotten the Trump endorsement, but is currently floundering. Kemp up currently almost 12 points to Perdue. Dave, any insight on the Georgia governor race?
Yeah,
Or
I
Georgia in
think
general?
I think a problem for Trump is Georgia. He has so many endorsements that people are kind of picking and choosing, and they're like, "Well, I'm going to vote for his guy for Senate, I'm gonna vote for his guy for Secretary of State. For governor, I'm not sold yet." It's just kind of it's easier to sell, streaming channels than a cable plan. Like you can make your choice. You're gonna and Kemp just really has not done anything apart from not literally overturn the election and pretend Trump won it. There is no rhino thing in Kemp's past. Even when Trump goes there and talks about it, he can't really articulate what Kemp did. It's just that it's that he and others did not stop absentee ballots from or let it be easier to cast absentee ballots and let ballots be dropped in drop boxes.
Well, also,
That's
didn't
it. Yeah.
they ask him to literally just find votes for him in Georgia? Weren't they recorded
They asked the
saying that?
Secretary of State to do that too. Yeah, it was. Can you just
Yeah,
find 10,000 something? That was
yeah.
my colleague Amy Gardner's story, which is one of the and that story is also one of those moments where we realize just you can't like stamp your feet and say why don't people listen to reality because that story published it has an audio of Donald Trump and I have met people who were like well that story was made up
Yeah. No,
because
no
they don't
one's
want it
gonna
to be
believe what
true.
they don't wanna believe.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
if you prove it to them, then it isn't what it was when they didn't believe it. There's nothing to be done.
Yeah,
But
you
this
guys, the
does
media didn't write about the laptop.
Yeah,
Ipso
exactly.
facto, nothing you say can be trusted. Yeah.
Yep. This does raise an interesting question, though, because the Achilles heel of a Trump rebound, to me, is that fixation on the election, to
Mhm.
the ignorance of everything else, and making it like the only litmus test for support, other than making sure that you think they can win, because Trump doesn't want to back a loser, no matter what they believe, because that looks bad. That reflects badly on him. So here we have a case where he's trying to unseat a sitting governor using this guy's failure to help him out after the election as the sole reason for doing it. And even in Georgia, which has a strong Republican tilt electorally generally, even though it went to Biden, they're not sold on it. It's not enough for them to overthrow their governor. So that makes you wonder, how is that really possible? Is his fixation on that a chink in the armor big enough for somebody like, say, Ron DeSantis to sneak in?
I don't think so because he's gonna. So I'm in the media, but the media loves the Trump endorsement story.